horses encourage us to be better every day, and, learning skills and being good at something is the only thing that's going to save, especially our young people's self-esteem, and give them what they need and the tools they need to combat this world. And it needs to be real. Like, this world needs to become real again for us to live with ourselves.
Horses are that magical. Horses can kind of read the child and nurture or care for that child. Horses have that connection and their ability to perceive and heal. They're healers. It's just amazing how much a horse can do for us.
I think the biggest thing I hope people come away with is it's a lifetime process with these horses. We owe them their whole lives being taken good care of. They give us so much.
Hey, I'm Dr. Doug. I'm a chiropractor for both animals and humans. My life's passion is volunteering at farms and helping rescue animals in need. Join me as we connect with people who have dedicated their lives to helping animals. Together we'll discover how helping animals live better lives will teach us to be better humans. Welcome to the Animal Cracker Podcast. Welcome to the Animal Cracker Podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of animals, their well-being, and the dedicated individuals who work tirelessly to ensure their health and happiness. I'm Dr. Doug Willen, your host, and today we have a special guest joining us, Piper Klemm, PhD, and the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Plaid Horse Magazine. Piper's passion for horsemanship and the hunter-jumper sport shines through in everything she does. Her mission is clear: to educate and inspire others to deepen their understanding of horses and the art of riding. I'm so excited to have you here, Piper, and welcome.
Thank you.
How was that for an intro? That was, I guess,
Sounds amazing.
Only I got with your mother and she helped me write that. No, I'm joking. But if we could only let our parents write our intro, right? That would be great.
I don't know. My mom must be way more critical than your mom.
Well, my mom is incredibly, she gushes over me. So I have to go, Mom, too much. My first question, I just have to ask this first, is your horse, MTM Sandwich, is the most incredible name. Yep. Can you give us a little bit, tell us what that means and how you came up with that? And tell us a little bit about your horse, breed, age, your story of your horse, how you came to be together in your lives.
Absolutely. This is actually him behind us here competing. So he came over to the United States. He's Westphalian. He's from Germany when he was 3 years old. And he was imported by MTM Farm, Mike McCormick's farm. And so on everything they import, they've imported probably about 1,800 horses by my count, not by their count. And they're really known for just really high quality athletes and horses that can do the big leagues. So his barn name was Reuben, and they named him MTM You Call It, with like a U, not YOU. And he went around and he won some stuff because he's an incredible athlete, but he also doesn't have maybe the most focus in the world. So he also didn't win a lot of things. And so when I got him after he had been to many places, pretty not successfully, I said to my trainer, I was like, I can't do the U. We got to change his name. It was Reuben. So we changed his name to MTM Sandwich. And I said to her, I said, what is a you call it? And she said, it means if you buy it, you can call it whatever you want.
I missed that.
Yeah.
So I guess you did
it's
too,
though,
right?
It's a joke. But his barn name was always Reuben. It's still Reuben. Yeah. So we call him Reuben around the barn.
Sometimes when you're filling out a form, it'll say at your email,
right.
And you have to put your own email in there. So
at
you had
exactly.
You call it almost, and that means you could have provided any name you wanted.
So
yeah,
Reuben Sandwich,
and then Reuben Reuben Sandwich.
So
right?
So his barn name's never changed of whatever, and calls him day to day. But his competition name changed because I couldn't do something with the letter U in it.
How many competitions do you think he's been in throughout his time with you?
Probably we do about 6 or 7 a year, which is like a light schedule for a show horse. Because I'm busy working, and I've learned so much from him. He had done a lot of really big competitions, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. That's not where he thrives. He likes hanging out with us. He likes being at the horse shows, but he doesn't want the big pressure put on him. And that's been, I'm very competitive. So
Mm.
it's been like it's been such an interesting place to learn with him of like how do we keep him fit, keep him happy, keep him sound, but also keep that pressure off of me and him. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, and he put a lot of pressure on himself. So there was just kind of a lot of anxiety for both of us in the beginning, with our relationship when we started showing what do we have to prove, but really learning how to take that pressure off of both of us. We've had a lot of success taking the need for winning, and the need for stuff has made us win more. So it's been a lot. It's been very healing for me. It's been very healing for him. We're both very chill now, but it took a long time.
How many years have you had him now?
I've had him for almost 6 years
Yeah.
now, and he's 17 right now.
Wow.
He's probably in the best competitive shape of his life at this age. You know, the horses don't know how old they are, and he had some soundness issues when we got him, and he kind of just, I think like a lot of people, like all the pieces are there, and he just couldn't quite put them together, and I think I would say that about myself at a younger age, and a lot of people I know is that there's
Mm.
a lot of raw materials, but until you can start managing your own day to day and manage your own emotions, like you can't you can't get that relaxation and athletic peaking both. That it's learning to be relaxed in the barn, and chill, and using that time to rest up, and then being really athletic and competitive when the time comes.
Did you ever compete with any other horses in the last 6 years?
So he's the first horse I've ever gotten. I had a pony when I was younger, and I moved that into a business where I lease out ponies. And so I've had a lot of animals in my care, but he's actually the first horse I've ever had. And so and he came, I would say, a little earlier in my life than I expected. I wasn't really looking for a horse, and I got the call one day that the one is here, and I kind of had to figure it out financially because I wasn't there yet. So I had competed on horses that people loaned me over the years, which I mostly stopped to focus on competing with him. I mean, my real limitation is time. I think like most of us, I would love to be at the barn all day, every day. I would love to spend every minute with him, but between work and travel, I don't always get to practice. I don't always get to horse show at all the horse shows. And so it's a little bit of, it's life. It's trying to manage all these different priorities, and jump right in and be as competitive as I possibly can, and spend the time be really present with the time I get to spend with him.
Is there like one day that stands out for you where he was competing at his best and the years that you've had him, like it kind of blew your mind? Wow, what a day we had.
So the first year, indoors is kind of our fall final season, and the first year I went to indoors with him was 2020, and I hadn't been traveling much. We hadn't gotten to practice much. A lot of the shows we tried to do were canceled, and we were probably a little bit. So we ended up qualifying, but I'm not sure that we were ready. And this is a conversation I have with a lot of people. Like, just because you qualify for something, if you're not ready, you shouldn't go. And I qualified, and I was not ready, and I wanted to go, and I went, and I ended up falling off twice in the schooling ring, and I never actually made it to the show ring. Like we weren't ready. It was too much pressure, too much too quickly. And so
Yeah.
the next year I went to the National Horse Show, and I was so terrified, like nerved up and terrified that I could even do it, because I'd make it into the ring last year, and so standing at the in-gate, it was just, and we made it around, and it was respectable, and it was kind of that next step. But then just like everything else, you're only as good as your team. Like, you're only as good as the people around you. You're only as good as all of this. And he has the best team of people who love him the most. And so then that next year at the National Horse Show, and this was like, the way things worked is like everyone who's part of my like core people ended up having to go to another horse show, or having another commitment, or like having to leave basically. So they warmed me up earlier in the week, and we were ready. But when the actual time to horse show came, everybody had to leave, and I had to do it basically by myself. I had people there to support me if I needed it, but they weren't my regular people. They weren't the people that like, really make everything happen. They weren't people that know us really well. And so it was simultaneously like terrifying and empowering. I walked away from that experience with all these feelings I didn't expect to have, by like having to step up and do things by myself that I'd never done before, and having to make decisions I had never had to make before. And it's all that we talk about with students, we talk about with people all the time. Like, if you don't put yourself out there in the scary situations, if it doesn't all fall on you, you're just never going to get better. And I feel like so many people that you talk to, like, both simultaneously want a job that's like so important that they get paid a lot of money, but also not so important that they have to take responsibility or that they can't take a day or two off. And it was one of those moments for me where I had to take all the responsibility. I had to do it. I had to own it. I had to really have it be mine, my ownership of that day. And he went out there in front of everyone and had probably two of the best rounds he's ever had. And we did it on our own. And it was the most incredible feeling for me and for him. And it just made a level of trust with him, because you're going out there and you're, cantering to these jumps, and they've never seen the jumps before, and they've never seen the ring before, and they have to trust you. They have to trust you that you're always going to keep
Yeah.
them safe and always put them in a good situation. And he trusts my team so much, and he trusts everyone around him, but to trust me individually that day, I mean, it was huge.
And the stakes are so high because, he can get
Yep.
injured, you can get injured. Uh, Actually, it's even life threatening at times, right? Like there could be a life threatening injury. The sport has had it, in the history. So like these are high stakes, and trust is such a bond. The bond, you're saying before about these life lessons. You know, working with animals in any regard, whether you're an athlete with animal athletes, like and you're an athlete, or in healthcare or in rescue work, there's so many life lessons. Like I would even go as far as saying like every life lesson
Yeah.
eventually presents itself, you know, because we learn so much about ourselves when we connect to animals that are so special like this. Do you feel that to be so true? Like everything just comes up when you're ready or you're not. The next little gem that you need to see in your life.
Absolutely. And nothing prepares you. I mean, one of the things we talk about all the time is that people want the answer. They want the answer, the quote unquote the answer, with horses, and they want something that's going to work every time. And they're always like searching for this answer. And it's such the wrong way to go about anything. There's no answer to anything. Yeah, everything's a balance. Everything you're going to overdo and underdo until you get it right. When you teach a horse anything, when you teach yourself anything, there's no silver bullet to any of this. It's consistency. It's making mistakes. It's fixing your mistakes. And I really
Yeah.
believe that confidence comes from having made so many mistakes that you know how to fix them all. And when new people come into the Plaid Horse, and when new people, join us, I'm like, look, if you make a mistake, just like first thing you do is call me, because I promise you I've made that mistake before. I know how to fix it. Like if you try to fix
Right.
it yourself, it'll take a lot longer, and we don't have time for that. But
Right. And sometimes the journey or seeking perfectionism makes us be totally paralyzed. We don't step forward in our lives. We don't attempt anything because we're trying to get everything right. There's this I don't know who said it first. I think it's a Yiddish saying, and I don't know Yiddish, so I can't say it in Yiddish. But basically, it's man plans and God laughs.
yep.
And I've heard it retold many times in other languages, but the lesson there is we so much want to plan everything
Hmm.
out. We want to think we can control it through if we just research this enough, or we just take enough lessons, or if we just then we could control the outcome. And that's the part that the universe or God or whoever is chuckling at, because eventually you have to just take action and then make a mistake or see what presents next after you're already in it. And you can't really learn when you're not in it, when you're sitting on the sidelines observing, preparing, controlling, but you eventually got to get in it. and do it and see what life presents at that moment. And then one step at a time, you create your own journey. Let's go a step back. Maybe someone's listening or watching on the video version on Animal Cracker YouTube channel. Tell us what hunter jumper is so that people listening might, we're going to have people that are actually, because they know you, really know what it is. But then we might also have someone that doesn't know what it is, but just loves horses.
Yep. So the hunters and the jumpers are two separate events, and they're both jumping events. The hunters are very stylistic, precision, figure skating. And then the jumpers would be more analogous to speed skating. You're jumping, you're trying to keep the jumps up, you're going as fast as you can, you're doing these technical tracks. And both of them at their fundamental level are testing your ability to train your horse. So both of them have courses set with the jumps that ask you questions like, can you make your horse, go forward? Can you make your horse come back? Does your horse move off your left leg? Does your horse move off your right leg? How well trained is your horse to your commands as you put these tracks in front of them that maybe the jumps are more far away or less far away or closer together, or you have to make these turns that are really complicated. So it's really, both of them are really a test of your relationship with your horse and how much your horse listens to you. They're both extremely complicated at every level. So they're very small jumpers. You can start at horse shows doing like the 2-foot hunters, the 2-foot jumpers, which are, very small jumps, but it's still asking these same questions as the higher level jumpers. As the jumps get bigger, so if you go up from like a 1 meter jump to a 1.05 meter jump, you need literally an exponential faster reaction time for both you and your horse. So the smaller levels are no less complicated than the upper levels, but that training reaction time from the horse, goes up exponentially every step. So if you go up from the 0.7 meter jumpers up to the 1.6 meter jumpers, you're just going way up exponentially on complication reaction time. And that really comes down to your athletic ability, the horse's athletic ability, your fitness, the horse's fitness, and then that just countless hours of training of the horse understanding what you're thinking, understanding what its job is, and being fit and sound and able. And most human athletes are never performing at their peak. Like something's a little sore, some injuries recovering, something's getting a little overdone, and the horses travel a lot too. And so a lot of it at the higher level is how do you keep them really happy and really sound and really fit when they're doing hard athletic activity that requires them to recover quickly. And so there's a management piece, there's the ability piece, there's the fitness piece, there's your mental game, there's the horse's mental game, keeping the horses confident and happy out there. So there are all these pieces that come together. Yeah.
And you also said controlling nerves,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like both the horse and the rider
Yep.
and the athlete has to control their nerves because the competition gets really intense, I bet.
Absolutely. And the horse
Yeah.
feels your heartbeat. They feel your feelings, all of this. Years ago, I rode this horse that a friend had ridden also, and the friend rides much, much, much better than I do. And but I got on the horse, and the horse went better for me. And they were so confused, and they're like, "What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?" And it's because I'm like more of a they're extremely calm, and I'm a more nervous rider. My heart, what we figured out was my heart was beating faster than their heart. So what they would do is before they got on the horse, they would jump up and down for like 60 seconds and get their heart rate really high and hop on the horse and go compete like that.
Wow. So you help them with that.
Yeah.
That's a cool
Yeah.
story. All right, I love it. So I'm also intrigued by the name of your magazine, the Plaid Horse. Can you tell us? I know you've been with them since 2014, but why this name and who would be like the avatar or your like ideal person that's attracted to your content? So tell us about that.
The plaid horse is kind of traditionally horses in show stables would wear these Baker blankets. They were plaid blankets, and so you'd have all these horses in these kind of iconic plaid blankets walking around. So the plaid horse is our show horses. People don't seem to wear them quite as much anymore, so it's a little bit historic maybe at this point, but it's part of that tradition. and a big part of our sports tradition. In terms of readership, I think the greatest thing about our sport is it's for all ages. You'll go to Barnes and see, 7-year-olds in lessons with 70-year-olds. And the Plaid Horse is that also when we look at our breakdown on Google Analytics, it's always amazing to me that we have just as many readers under 18 as we do over 65, because we all are part of this journey, and things hit at a different age. And one of the things I really recommend to people is that they go back and read the classic books that they read when they were young or younger, because all of that stuff reads so differently. Even books for beginners on horsemanship, when you read them, when you're more advanced, all of those words hang differently, they sit differently, you think about them differently. And I think to be a good steward to your horse, first and foremost, you need to be a good steward to yourself. You need to take good care of yourself so that you can take good care of your horse, take good care of the people who help you take care of your horse. And that requires a lot of emotional evolution. We're all in different stages of that story. In our own story, we're all in different stages of harnessing ourselves. And so we have so many articles, and I think everything kind of hits everyone where they are right now, which is a little bit differently, and we have content for everyone. So everyone is welcome, and we've always had a huge base in the US, and we're starting to get.
I've listened to your podcast also, and tell us the name of it so that people can tune in and find it. It's really great, and then you have your co-host, and so you come from two different points of view. So tell us about that so we can tune into that if people are interested.
Absolutely. It's called the PlaidCast, and it comes out weekly every Friday, and we interview all kinds of people from around our industry. And I have kind of rotating co-hosts, so we talk to different people and different people in the mix that ride and train and are in the barn every day. And then, kind of, yeah, as you said, we get a lot of viewpoints and mix that with me, who's kind of more online on the writing, on the interviewing side. So really just hearing people's stories. And I want people to think about how many careers there are in the industry, and not just riding or training, but there's so many pieces that are viable, fulfilling careers, and you get to be around horses. So what's better than that?
Have you ever had any chiropractors show up at any of the events? Have you ever seen an animal or horse chiropractor in all your days at these places?
Absolutely. Yeah, chiropractors are an essential part of taking care of your horse at the highest level, and most barns have someone at home, but then also have kind of a regular person that meets and knows their horse at horse shows. A lot of the equine chiropractors are also vets, or it's part of that service. And so when you're traveling with your horse all over the country or all over the world, you want people who still know them and are connected with them. So you have your regular person in Kentucky when you go there, and you have your regular person in Florida when you go there, and all over the country you're meeting up with your regular network of providers who know your horses.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of horse chiropractors right here in New York City. I've worked with hunter jumper horses before, and one of the things that I'll see sometimes is really a type of whiplash. So horse, with all their body weight is coming over a jump with their rider, of course, and the head could, I'll do it on profile. The head can whip,
Yep.
and like a whiplash. When we were studying it for humans, we really like to call it an acceleration deceleration injury. So like the common phrase is called whiplash, or you're sitting at a red light with your foot on the brake and a car doesn't see the red light behind you, and it hits you, tail ends you, right? And in your body goes whoom, and your head goes forward, and there's a snap because of the torque and force going through it. And what's interesting in a car accident is sometimes there's a 60-mile-an-hour car hitting a stationary car, and that person doesn't get so injured. And then sometimes there's a 10-mile-an-hour tap, and that could be an injury that you suffer the ramifications for years to come. So the human body is really interesting. And sometimes there's little angle changes, like if you're looking up at the rearview mirror, that's changing your alignment or your you're not in a straight anatomical straightforward position. Your head's slightly turned. And the reason this applies to horses is because it's really the same thing. It's an acceleration deceleration injury. The angle of the head of the horse as it lands could affect the severity of it. And so if an inexperienced rider, or if there's a little hitch in your jump, you don't hit it just right, the landing can have the horse's head turned just a little bit. And if people are watching, you'll see my head just turned just a little bit, uh, which would create much more force or torque through those lower cervical joints, especially like C5, C6, C7. And could also be the foot strike. It could be so many different things that don't hit just right. We practice perfectly, but in performance, who knows, right? Like the idea when we practice is we want to practice perfectly. A dancer practices perfectly, but once the lights come on and the curtains come open, who knows what's going to happen? And athletically, that happens. And so I've been called in before to work on hunter jumper type of horses, or even just amateurs that jump their horses, that don't compete, but just enjoy it on their own ranch or property. And we see this. And I think chiropractic is a good piece for that, because a vet can do so much, but eventually sometimes there needs to be a little mobilization of those segments that have been subluxated or misaligned or stuck. And they'll get some really good benefit from chiropractic there. But have you, any of your horses you've ridden had a little bit of a whip or a incorrect landing that might have upset their cervical spine a little bit?
Absolutely. And you can't just tell your horse
Mhm.
to stretch or, do, rehab
Yeah,
motions or, even just
yeah,
relax things. And I think, when horses get some time off, I think one of the times people forget to chiropract them is anytime the horse is going to have, a couple months off, which rest is so important. We always do usually 2 chiropractic sessions the week before they're going to get time off so that they're very balanced, very aligned, because we don't want them in their time off to start having compensation or favoring something.
mhm,
Um, if you start their time off on a clean slate, everything's going in the right direction. Um, Horses will compensate for lots of different things, and so really addressing everything immediately so that they don't start putting extra weight on another leg. A lot of horses with like left front injuries, you're going to see it come out in the right hind because they're putting so much more weight on the opposite leg, and
right. So that's
yep,
the diagonal or
yep,
ipsilateral, or I mean contralateral. Ipsilateral is the same side contralateral as like
yep,
front, left, back, right. And in my training, the vets that were my teachers taught us a lot about that. After I was done with my initial program, I also studied with some really great farriers and horse massage therapists, and they wanted to also show me that the way the hoof grows will teach us
yep,
what's happening above it. And so you might see a horse with, let's say the front left, or all three of the hoofs are
hmm,
growing kind of uniformly, but the front right isn't. So that's a clue. And you can keep trimming those hoofs and making them prettier. But why is it growing different? There's something going on. It could be the neck, the shoulder, if it's the front. It could be anything. It could be the rear end. Uh, so there's so many clues. People ask me all the time, how do you know if a horse or a dog or a chicken, or because I adjust horses, dogs, pigs, chickens, cows, cats, goats, rabbits, all sorts of different animals. And how do you know that they need to be adjusted? Because I can't just come up to them, or they don't just show up in my office one day and go, I have a stiff neck. I've been texting a lot lately and thought I'd maybe get an adjustment. They don't come in. But what is obvious to you, of course, is the owner knows. The owner is so clear on it. You see the way the horse is behaving. Maybe it's doesn't want the saddle on its back, and that's never happened with this horse. It bristles to the saddle, or maybe you're riding and it's just having hesitancy turning to the right. A lot of little clues. Even just petting it, it's sensitive to the touch. Picking up its feet, so the farrier says, there's something going on here. There's something going on here. And it might not be the hoof. It could be the shoulder, or it could be the hip. So there's so many clues all the time that we have with our horses, dogs, pigs, chickens, cats that will show us. And the closer that we learn to have relationships with our animals, the more we see this. I wanted to ask you a little bit about like horse behavior and, specifically here I wrote a few things down, but maybe some body language stuff. Like, is there stuff that you teach some of your students or, the people that come into your world of like things to look for with their horse or anything that comes to mind? Because I'm sure we could just throw a dart and start anywhere on this.
I think the biggest thing is that, the horses are usually doing something because something doesn't feel right. Like kind of the old school language was they're bad or naughty. And I think we need to eliminate that from our vocabulary. They're uncomfortable and it's either physical or emotional or they haven't had the training or, something's making them uncomfortable. But, I've never met a horse that was just bad or naughty. And so I think even just starting from that place with the language, um, as you said, using the saddle, putting the saddle on, that can be like a big indicator of back pain. Grooming them, you can always tell how a horse feels grooming. And same thing as everything else, like, do they flinch? Do they want you to groom? What things are they excited for you to pet? What are they not? And they're just like people. There's so much variation. There are horses that have sensitive skin and nothing really hurts, but they don't
Yeah.
really want to be groomed. And then there are horses that, are really stoic. There's a horse I get to ride sometimes who is very stoic and would never, ever admit that anything's wrong. And he's the one that like scares us the most in a lot of ways because you have to be so extra careful because he'll just show up to work. Some horses, like something barely hurts and they are just super dramatic about it. Um, and so it's really getting to know their personalities and what their body normally feels like and identifying things outside of their normal.
Right.
Horses,
And
yeah,
socialization. Sometimes
yep,
socialization is something. So let's say a horse loves to be with the herd and then all of a sudden doesn't want to be anymore. Uh,
yep.
that's a clue. Like why is that horse staying away from everybody right now? That would make you curious.
There's so many diet components. As you talked about with the feet, a horse who's had great trims its whole life, if it has a trim, you think about how much weight is on the horse's feet and all the biomechanical angles that go into feet. Like if the feet are trimmed wrong once and you go jump that horse around, and it's what you said, the whiplash landing from every jump, like one mistake can have just enormous ramifications. Just like for you, one car accident can have enormous ramifications on your life. One mistake with the horses can have ramifications that you're dealing with for a long time. And horses that are healthy and body healthy and not stressed, can heal from a lot of things. And horses that have that underlying layer of stress, anxiety, struggle to heal from anything. And so a lot of it's that whole picture and taking the time up front.
Yeah, I mean, I want to do a whole podcast or many podcasts on the horse's feet. It's such a huge topic. I tell people sometimes when they ask me about it because they think they're these just like big toenails or these big blocks on the bottom of a big animal, but there's so much life there. There's a whole world in the feet. Did you ever hear Dr. Seuss like Horton Hears a Who? And inside this little like dandelion is a whole world. There's a whole world in the horse's feet. And a good way to describe it sometimes is like how sensitive it could be or how much it could change everything. Did you ever have like go to the dentist and they're fixing a tooth and they're put like a little extra on there and then they use the little charcoal and you have to tap 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 and they keep filing it down till they get it so you can't feel it anymore, and it's the last step so you can leave the dentist's office. But sometimes you go home and there's still a little like piece of gravel
Yep.
stuck there, and now your jaw hurts. Now you start getting a headache. It's driving you insane. And you call up and you're like, I need to come back. This is wrong. It's my bite is off. And it's that huge. If the trim on the horse's foot, if there's something going on to foot, like you said, there's a stoic horse that will grin and bear it and never show that. But especially with these athletic horses, it means everything
Everything.
to have the feet off, and it could be an infection, it could be the trim, it could be a million things, but but it's so important.
Ruben's actually barefoot. He's been that was one of the things that was right for him when we initially started his rehab, and he's been barefoot for about 5 years, and he does all the
Yeah.
big competitions without shoes. He travels all over the country, and he is so happy to not have shoes, and his feet get a little scuffed up and maybe like don't always cosmetically look perfect, but he's really comfortable in his body.
And from what I have learned, that's a very individual decision
Yep,
too, right?
yep, very individual.
Yeah. There's some horses that clearly need them and some
Yep.
that do wonderful without it. And it's very individual. Case by case.
Absolutely. And that's a knowing your horse thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and this is across all disciplines, is that everything is getting so competitive, and the breeding is getting so extreme right now. And so everybody wants to win. And, we have this like type, and it's, the quarter horses are doing their own type. And every different breed and discipline is getting so, um, you know, typey to try to win their competition. And so our horses generally a short back is what we're breeding for and what we're looking for, because a short back can really help them athletically jump the big jumps. And it's we have almost bred for such a short back that the saddle sizes we have cover more vertebrae than they're supposed to, than makes sense biomechanically. And so we're almost creating problems at this point by being so extreme in our breeding. And I think, some of these things are going to come to a head also. Like, is your horse so purpose bred or so type bred that, regular things, don't make sense anymore, even things
Mhm.
we've done as horse people for 50 years. And if you look at a lot of these horses' backs, like having a saddle that's bigger than a 16 and a half inch, like literally covers too many vertebrae. But most people are riding most adults are riding in a saddle bigger than a 16 and a half inch. So it's
Right.
complicated.
If someone doesn't know, what's a short back?
Literally like the distance between their chest and their butt. We want that to be as compact as possible, and because it keeps the power and springiness basically. When their horse's back is really long, you think like dogs, like a corgi. Corgis are going to have a lot of trouble
Mhm.
jumping and doing doing athletic things.
I'm very interested in people understanding like horses are very different than dogs. So a dog is a predator and a horse is a prey animal. And just how they're anatomically set up. I mean, a horse has this incredible vision. The eyes are more on the side of the head. And a predator, they're usually in front, right? So they're on the side because they need to look 360 degrees. They need to see their horizon. They're looking for lions. They're looking for something vulnerability, even though they're these big, gigantic, muscular animals. They're prey animals, and they're nervous about their environment. And we need to know that whether you're in healthcare for an animal or whether you just have an animal as your part of your family, or if you have a horse that you compete with, and it changes the whole dynamic of the relationship where the trust part where I got you. So you were saying jumping the horse has to know that you got it. You're looking out for it. You're watching the horizon. You're watching
Yep.
its safety, and it listens to your heartbeat. It synchronizes with your heartbeat. It feels it. It can feel like if you have high blood pressure, it can tell. Now it's not going to report back to you and say you're 140 over 90, but it changes its whole biochemistry once we have that level of relationship with your horse. And knowing that it's not a predator, it's a prey animal, there's a bigger responsibility for us to really care for the horse and make it confident that we got its back, we got it covered. And I think that will come through in your sport as well so much, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, the horse has got all of the aspects. It's a travel, it's the going into an unfamiliar barn and stall, and, trusting that like even unfamiliar food, and that kind of thing, that you have their back, you're taking care of them. And yeah, and you can't explain like even chiropractic stuff. You can't explain to them that like, hey, this like, might might be a little scary feeling for a second, but like you're gonna feel better. They have to trust, vaccinations. Like it's not like you can explain to a kid, okay, like this needle is gonna hurt, and then you're gonna not get, polio.
Right.
You can't explain that to your horse, so they have to trust that like everything about their life is good enough, that everything you're doing is in their best interest.
There's so many little things like people sometimes don't know why a horse's stall has like a window. Or we have that Dutch door, right? The door is cut in half, or it has a top piece. You'll see that so often, or some version of that. And it's because they're prey animals
Yep.
and they need to see, or they get very agitated. You put a horse into a stall that has no sight, like a prison cell, and it freaks them out. It's not good. They need to be able to like hear and see and check out their environment and see if they're safe all the time, all the time, all the time. And until they trust that, they learn their home, of course, but
Yep.
they need to know that they're being protected.
And they're herd animals, and socialization is so important for them. And I think, going on the road and protecting your precious expensive show horse can get tempting to limit their socialization, because just like us, the more you socialize, you can get hurt. You add these factors in, but for mental health for the horse, and what they've evolved into, to me, it's so essential. Ruben goes out in the paddock with all kinds of friends. At any given time, he's out in the paddock with 20 to 35 other horses, and they have their own herd dynamics and pecking order. And he gets a lot of like mental stimulation. A lot of his entertainment comes from hanging out with his friends, and then he's not looking to me for that entertainment,
Mhm.
which, he has his own life, and I think that makes him happier overall.
I always like to ask the people I talk to that work with animals, whether they're in the rescue side of it or the training or athletic side of it, or even if they're an influencer on with animals on social media. But how is your life with Reuben Sandwich, or just in this whole world that you've immersed yourself in? How has it touched you as a person? As how has it come back to you?
I think that, honestly, I think animals are the only thing that can save us from this world that we've created, that's so vapid and so online and so not real. When you're with an animal, you have to be in the moment. They don't care. They don't care how many Instagram followers you have. They don't care what you look like. They care about who you are. And I think that coming back to that center and coming back to that base all the time is the most important gift we can give our kids, we can give our friends, we can, give to everyone in the world that we possibly can. I mean, the ability of all animals, but horses specifically, to heal us, I think is truly incredible. And we lack being present with other people so much right now, and horses just simply do not allow that. You need to be present at any given time. They can, stamp their feet swatting a fly. They can see something that you don't see. They can get nervous. They can need reassurance. They can reassure you. And you can't be distracted, and you can't be not paying attention. And in this world that we've encouraged and allowed people to not be present, not pay attention, and not interact with each other. And then we all know the consequences of that. You spend all day on your phone, and you're fundamentally unhappy at night, and you spend a few hours with a horse, and you go to bed exhausted and having accomplished something. And I think this is, horses encourage us to be better every day, and learning skills, and being good at something is the only thing that's going to save especially our young people's self-esteem, and give them what they need and the tools they need to combat this world. And it needs to be real. Like, this world needs to become real again for us to live with ourselves.
There's no accident why there are places all over the world now where handicapped kids or kids with Down syndrome or other autism or other developmental issues can go connect with a horse. And horses are that magical, and horses can kind of read the child and nurture or care for that child, so that they might take disabled child and someone puts them on a horse or connects to them or just lets them touch the horse. And these are horses that are, at these places for a reason, because they're really the type of horses that can do this with the child. But we don't see that with a goat, or we don't see it, like horses have that connection and their ability to perceive and heal. They're healers. It's just amazing how much a horse can do for us. And I loved what you said about, we can really get stuck with living our lives with devices, and we forget that that's not what makes us human. It's a way we connect to other humans, and it's the world that we live in. And I do that too. I mean, everybody does that, but it's once in a while we need to like get our feet in the grass, and we need to go touch an animal, and we need to get to know the other part of being human is the connection to our universe, our earth, our animals on earth, and respect that they're not just these lumps of muscle out there, but that they actually have the ability to change our lives. Do you have one last story to tell me, maybe to close, where something like one of your favorite stories of a horse connection? It doesn't have to be a victory of an Olympic event, but it could just be something that you know touched your heart, of how maybe something happened for you with, or someone that you saw have a change because of their relationship with a horse.
My own story is that my mom's college roommate, when I was 11, gave me an unbroke, unridden, unhandled 2-year-old, which is like the worst idea in the whole world. And everyone will tell you that it's wrong. And it's horrible for so many reasons.
And
But
how old were you? How old were you?
11, 11,
11. Okay.
11, unbroke 2-year-old. And everyone told my mom that it was wrong and stupid. And I still have that pony. She's still teaching kids to ride. She's 26 years old. And my mom is flying in later this month to go to a horse show with her college roommate. They're still friends. And over the years, I mean, this pony has gone all over the country, and she's been leased and loaned to all kinds of people over the years. She's taught so many kids how to ride. She's introduced me to so many people. A couple years ago, someone's barn burned down, and we loaned her to them to help rebuild their program and rebuild their lesson program. And she's just done her time in the community teaching kids how to ride. She's at my friend's farm right now, semi-retired, but her two boys ride her. And that just the impact of one animal over the years. I mean, she's 26 years old right now, so I've had her for 24 years. Every year she still teaches me so much. Every year she gives so many people the gift of learning to ride and learning to handle and learning to manage horses. I've learned her entire career. I learned how to handle young horses from her. I learned how to manage middle-aged career athletes from her. Now I'm learning to manage old horses from her. I mean, the amount of impact of one animal over their course of a lifetime is so incredible. And she's done so many things for so many people and touched so many lives. And I think the biggest thing I hope people come away with is it's a lifetime process with these horses. We owe them their whole lives being taken good care of. They give us so much, and every step along the way, she was a challenge. She was
Mhm.
hard. She still has so much personality. I think the biggest thing I'm learning now is how much of her original personality she still has at age 26.
And
But
what's her name?
her name's Posey.
See, I love that. I mean, it you could, people watch the video version of this, they'll see your face, but I think you can hear it in your voice as well. Just, how much joy and love, and really, Posey's been such a teacher and a friend, right?
Yep.
Everything.
She's been there for literally everything for me, and everything I've gone through. And and so many people were like, oh, your PhD must have been so hard. And I'm like, oh, you guys haven't met Posey. She was so much harder to train than my PhD.
So this is so good. So if people want to stay in touch with you, of course they can look up the Plaid Horse Magazine, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
what's the website for that?
Theplaidhorse.com.
Okay, that's easy. The plaidhorse.com.
Yep.
And also you have Instagram, you have Facebook.
Yep.
Is your Instagram the Plaid Horse?
Yep. At the Plaid Horse Mag is us on
At the Plaid
Instagram.
Horse Mag. We're going to have
Yep.
this also
Yep.
on the video version and in the description box. And it's in the description box if you're Apple and your Spotify or whatever outlet you're listening through. It's going to be easy to find her if you just look at the description box. But thank you so much for being on this podcast today. You're awesome, and sharing some of your experiences and your thoughts and your insights. And it's just a beginning, because people can start to read the Plaid Horse magazine and connect to the parts of the magazine that resonates the most with them. And plus your podcast, is it the Plaid? What's it called?
PlaidCast. Yeah,
PlaidCast.
PlaidCast.
I think that's clever. I like that. The PlaidCast. All right. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it.